So today we're going to take a look at one of the first pro games played on Pearl, or at least the first one that I have seen. But before we do that, I'm just going to quickly explain some of my ideas about this map in a very basic sense, right? So, to me, very quickly, and this will be interesting as we see the team comps and whatnot, to me, you can split Pearl down the middle, and the two sides of the map, B and A, are quite different. This B side, and I've talked about it before, I think is quite like Icebox. Why is it like Icebox? Well, here you have a choke pointless way to get to site. Like Icebox, right, on both sides of Icebox, really. There isn't really a full choke point that you have to kind of get through, or if there is, they're very big and have different elevations, and so they basically aren't choke points on Icebox to go to A or B, whereas the mid part of Icebox is full of little choke points, and you know, you think about like going through kitchen or whatever, right? It's full of like narrow pathways, full of choke points, full of places that you can be reflanked as well. That's what this reminds me of, right? Like, this is Icebox B side to me, right? Where this kind of is the kitchen part, and this is just the kind of normal route towards B. That's what the B side of Pearl reminds me of. But the A side of Pearl actually reminds me more of Haven C. Why does this remind me of Haven C side? Well, you have this kind of long, I know it isn't straight towards A here, this kind of path, but it's kind of, you know, a longish path towards to get to A. Can you 5-stack go through this choke point? I think absolutely yes you can, and you know, we see that in pro games as well, where sometimes they'll just run it down at C as a 5-stack, but you also can come through and do a little split push instead, which is what you can do here on Pearl, I believe, as well, where you can, you know, do this if you want as well. And the thing is, on this side, and the comparison to Haven here, is that this part reminds me of Garage, right? It's a bit more cramped, it's a bit more difficult maybe to enter into initially, but once you do, again, you can be reflanked. Like, you think of someone dropping down of Garage window as you're getting in towards site, right? I think the same thing could be true here, that, you know, once you start to push towards site here, you know, you can be reflanked like you can from Garage window. You can just 5-stack it down here. There's just like one box in the middle of the site that's very Haven-esque as well, I think. And so I do think that this, like, from an attacker's point of view at least, is quite like Haven in that instance. And so with that in mind, with one side being more Icebox and one side being more Haven, let's take a look at the two team comps, because I think this is super interesting. We'll start with Soniqs team comp, which is Solo Viper Controller, KO Jet Chamber Fade. What does this look like? Oh yeah, this looks like an Icebox comp, right? These agents are played on Icebox quite regularly, and this would not look out of place on Icebox at all. And then we take a look at Zero Marksmen's team comp, which is very, very different. And what does this team comp look like? With a Breach and an Astra, and maybe a Neon in there as well. Fade and Chamber. Oh yeah, it looks just like a Haven team comp, and I found this super, super interesting. And in general, in the game, when I watched it, it was no surprise to me that Soniqs had a lot more success when they were going towards B on the attacking side, and Zero Marksmen had much more success when they were going towards A. And so let's start with round number 4, and Zero Marksman, or the Haven comp, is on attack, and Soniqs, or the Icebox comp, is on defense. So let's take a look at what's going on. So first thing to note is Soniqs were doing this interesting wall across mid here. I think personally that as we go forward, I think that Viper will become, you know, very, very regular on this map, and I think honestly we'll see more retake walls across B like that. You know, something like this or something like that, just across this B site to allow you to retake. I think that that will probably become the most meta wall, you know, on defense, but we'll have to see as time goes on. But anyway, in they start to come, right, and we get this early pressure here with the Fade Haunt, the Neon there, and actually what they've done is they've done this Astra Smoking. They kind of have a pretty interesting idea to start, because they actually want to try and push, you know, towards deep mid here and deep spawn. Really cool idea, and you'll see that they actually send in the Fade Haunt as well here. So this is their Fade Haunt, right, coming towards spawn. Now the problem is they do get stopped by this KO molly that's going to come in right there. And this is one other thing I should talk about, that Soniqs had the Jet here on this round defending towards shore. I think that's a mistake. I think you definitely want anyone with a molly defending this area of the map, simply because if you put a molly down, they can't get, like, there is literally no way through, and so yeah, that's going to be a very effective thing for you. And so having a Jet defend there, I don't think honestly is probably the best idea. But anyway, they get stopped by that KO molly, as you see there, and so now they kind of have to call an audible, right? It's not really possible. They've kind of missed the timing of being able to do that. They see that Ian here has an op, and he misses the first shot. He's actually going to miss the second shot as well, but they're going to have a problem with doing this, right? And this is what I've talked about, that this is kind of a big problem with this part of the map. It's kind of like Kitchen and Icebox, right? Where it's just difficult to get through, because the thing is, even though, you know, they're here, they now have another small choke point to have to try and get through. With, you know, and they've used a lot of their utility already to, you know, get into this space, but now they need to kind of redo that all again and get through this narrow choke point. Not going to be easy, as the longer that they wait here, the longer they can be flanked. You might think, oh, this Astra though, they can kill the flanker, but this Astra has to worry that they aren't being flanked themselves, right? So it's kind of a big mess in this mid part if you get bogged down in this area, and you'll see that they eventually, what's going to happen is they do get bogged down. Iron, probably hits that shot most of the time, and the Neon would be dead, as I said, and they just get stuck. They don't really know what to do. This chamber, doesn't feel comfortable pushing into an op there. They actually do manage to find the first kill, but then it's going to be quickly traded out. They drop the spike, and now they kind of have to leave, right? And this happened, quite a few times to Zero Marksmen here, where their comp just wasn't suited to going towards B, so they would just end up getting bogged down quite often, and then coming back to A, as you see here, and they'd find more success on A. Now, what they're going to do here is they are going to start to come in. They're going to stun down the lane, so they're going to send a breach stun just down here, as you can see there, whilst the Neon is running and doing this. So let's take a look at how that goes, because they do, as you can see, start to get that pressure towards the site. I do like this little Viper play here. Put the orb up. This is a nice little angle to use the orb with. This is good from Crunchy, I think, and he manages to get that first kill there. And initially, he does really, really well here, because this flash is going to come in from the breach. He turns it. He manages to get another. The problem is, though, that everyone else dies to Bjor, just kind of coming around here and managing to find those kills. And then, boy, at the right time, comes through the smoke. They get it into a 2v1. They get the spike down, and ultimately, they will manage to win this round. It was really quite an interesting round, and I think it shows some of these two comps. I wouldn't say are great comps in and of themselves, and I think would change with time, but they have elements, I think, of what will become meta overall. Now let's come to round number 8, where actually we're going to see the same sort of attempt, if you will, of what they were trying to do before, where they try and push in towards spawn. But again, you'll see that they just get bogged down in trying to do that. But in they start to come, right? We get breach stun, we get the fatal going in, that same fatal. Again, they get this fade haunt, they get this smoke here as well, but the fade haunt actually reveals the jet. And so again, they are actually able to see and manage to kill the jet, as you see there. Quite a nice, interesting idea. But then we're going to get this reflank problem, and there you go, the spike gets dropped again and again in a different game. That could go quite badly potentially, but they do actually manage to get onto the B site, because Soniqs didn't actually have anyone on B. This is a pretty crazy kill there from Boy, just peeking out, and he manages to get a kill. But this the rest of the round, I think, is going to show why a Viper wall across here playing for retake instead of doing this kind of wall, because the Viper was on A, but I think if you do have the orb there, it's fine. But just a wall across this, anything across this, I think it's just going to be super impactful, and you'll see what I mean, because just take a look at the positions of the rest of Zero Marksmen here. They're all going to be back here, right? They're all going to be coming all the way back. And I just want you to think about, okay, what if there was a wall, something like across that? This Neon would be absolutely screwed, right? This Neon would be just completely screwed, and you'll see what I mean, because as this goes on, they've actually managed to get the Neon vulnerable there. But the thing is, they can't push, because now there's people coming from multiple sides, and that is why I think that that Viper wall there across this B site will just be so impactful, because it'll just make retaking on this site, and you see it's some nice utility coming out from Zero Marksmen there to end it. But that Viper wall going across, I think, will just be super impactful, and will allow you to play much more loosely on B and much more for retakes on B as a whole. And so I do expect that will become meta, as we kind of see from this round. It would have been pretty useful. And now let's come to Soniqs' first attacking round, their first pistol round here. And it's no surprise that with their comp, they just decided to group up and go towards B. And this, I think, is just so hard to stop. What was interesting was actually Zero Marksmen on their pistol round kind of tried a similar thing, but Soniqs stacked B and kind of got aggressive with it and managed to win that pistol round. But you'll see in this one, with a Viper here, with the comps that were going on, this round was already pretty much determined. Pistol round, just running as a 5-stack down B. There really isn't much you can do to stop it, right? Because you just have to fight into 4 people, because there is no choke point there to stop them at any point. Shot goes a bit crazy there, just keeping running. But yeah, they managed to find the kills. The other 2 are coming on the flank, but this they aren't going to check this chamber here, and so you see he's just waiting, and eventually will end the round just there. But yeah, this is something that happened again, right, where we didn't see much of this, to be honest, from Zero Marksmen, but for Sonic, straight away it was just like, yeah, let's just group up and go B. But now let's come to the very next round, and this is something that I would advise you all, that if you have guns and your opponents don't touch this part of the map, because again, it is like the mid part of Icebox where it's just too risky, and you'll see that happen right now, as that is what Sonics are going to try and do. They send the KO knife in, the chamber TPs away, they send a Fade Horn in. That is actually going to catch the Fade on the other side, but you'll see what happens here is they have this Viper wall up, right, and they're going to put a jet smoke down. The thing is, though, that doesn't actually stop this chamber from coming through, right? And now you're playing in very close angles against what could be classic shorties, all of that kind of stuff, right? And so you're just adding in a big risk potential, essentially, right? Because we're going to see the power of the right-click classic here. As you see, it manages to get a kill, and also the chamber did just run through the smoke, right? He does end up getting traded, but this is absolutely fine on a pistol round. Then what we're going to see is a breach stun come out, and this Viper is going to get stunned, and now you have to deal, and this is the problem, right? You're having to deal with multiple angles and potentially worry about the flank as well as soon as you get bogged down in this area. It's a tight-knit area where, again, any breach stun or whatever will definitely catch you, or most likely catch you, and you have to worry about a ton of different angles coming at you. It's a death trap, right? That is the problem with doing this. It is a death trap, and so as particularly against a save, I would just simply not recommend this at all, to be honest. And they end up in a 4v2, and obviously they drop the guns and whatnot, and whilst they will get the spike down, now obviously they have to make a play, and so the chamber tries to go and do that, but then he dies, so we end up in a 4v1, and to be fair, this Fade does make a decent attempt at it, but obviously in a 4v1 it's always unlikely. You see they do manage to get 2, but eventually die there to the last player, and they end up losing against the pistols here. So now let's come to round number 18, and what you can see here is we've got this Viper wall going across mid just there. We get KO knife, Fade deep in here, right? And so Sonics are going to make a play towards mid, and that is what they do, as you can see. But you can also see that the side of Zero Marksmen, they're playing kind of towards mid as well. But again, they're playing this kind of heavy retake B stuff. Again, with a Viper, I think this just makes a lot more sense. In this instance, they're doing it, though, because they have the Astra ult. So I think that did make sense for them in this instance, but I think in general that you might see a lot of this just with a Viper doing it just all the time rather than needing an Astra ult. So that's quite an interesting little adaptation that they did as well. In comes Sonics, right? They come down towards mid. They send that Prowler there. They get deep in towards that. And a Prowler actually comes out from the other side as well, just here, that catches the Viper just there. So because of that, this Neon kind of retreats a bit and gives up this space. And that obviously is going to be a mistake, as you will see, because what Sonics do something quite weird, to be honest, because they come through and they go towards mid. You see the Fade tries to push off the Prowler, but Crunchy manages to get that kill, and now the Neon has come back across, thinking that this is where the pressure is coming in. The thing is, though, these players have managed to actually just walk up here and come behind, right? Very interesting, very weird, catching a good timing perhaps as a bunch of pressure comes towards this part of the map. They actually do manage to find Crunchy there, who got a kill, to be fair, a pretty good kill as they walked in first, but now this is a free one right there coming from behind, and that's a trade there as well, and we end up in a 3v1, and they do just come towards B in the end. Interesting round, right? I think, again, will this happen going long term? Probably not, right? You do see that in general, when a map first comes out, it is attacker sided, and then people kind of learn, you know, what attackers do essentially, and then, you know, we start to see more sort of settled 50-50 type stuff. And I expect much the same, right? That this was an attacking sided map for both teams, but you know, as time goes on, I'm sure people will adjust and you know, learn how to defend this map. This is actually just going to end up being a save from the Astra. And so that was kind of a first quick look at Pearl there. I don't think that either of these comps will end up being the meta comp, to be honest, but I do think a sort of maybe even fusion of the two very well could be, right? Because I do think that this map will essentially be kind of a combination of Icebox and Haven. We just saw that in this instance, you know, both teams kind of went with an Icebox comp or a Haven comp, not necessarily a Pearl comp, but I do think that, you know, this is kind of an interesting little kind of problem, and some teams might just lean into, hey, we are just going to run an Icebox comp and just go B, right? All of our attacking side will just be going B, or, you know, hey, we're going to run a Haven comp and we're just going to go A. We might see something like that, and maybe that will find success as well, but I do think that, you know, overall the most meta comp will probably end up being some kind of combination of the two.